meeting February 27, 2025. Show the time at 9 o'clock sharp. And we are missing, I believe, Jamie, Councilmember Lyon, and also Dethridge, I believe. Is he not gonna?
No.
And we have Bob.
I'm going to make a motion to allow Bob Markleese to participate remotely.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next up, we have adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes from anyone in council?
Yes, I need to add a closed session pursuant to NCGS 143318.11A5 to instruct staff on negotiating the price and other material terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease.
And where we're doing it at the end?
At the end.
Okay. Anything else?
Nothing?
Bob, you have anything? Hearing none.
No.
I will need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up, we have adoption of the previous minutes. Any questions, concerns, or changes that need to be made for Austin? Hearing none. I'll need a motion to approve the minutes provided.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up, presentations. We have presentation from Mary Connell's Light, empowering those living with Charles Bonnet syndrome. Welcome.
Give 1 second to get this pulled up.
Do we have a attachment?
Good morning, and thank you for having me here today. The reason I saw local
Is her button on?
Thank you. We are a local nonprofit. We operate out of Union County. I actually live in Weddington, and Mary Carmel's Light is the birth child of my mother having Charles Bonnet syndrome. So Charles Bonnet syndrome is a physiological condition that affects people who have low vision or who have gone blind after being sighted. They begin to have silent visual hallucinations without any warning, and it can happen to anyone at any age, at any time. And it seems to be focused on the elderly population simply because that is a larger population of people that are losing their vision, but it can affect anybody at any age. So the warning signs are not there. If you lose your vision for any reason, accident, injury, eye disease, diabetes, anything related to vision that drops your visual acuity, you can experience Charles Bonnet syndrome. So why is this a problem? Because it's not being recognized by the medical community. So our mission is to bring awareness, information, and education to the medical community and to the public. So people may see simple hallucinations like the one you see up there, or they can be even nightmarish like these, or even these. Okay, one more, Austin. So how do you get a proper diagnosis? Well, herein lies the conundrum. So it's often misdiagnosed as dementia, schizophrenia, Lewy body dementia, or severe bipolar disorder. And in order for us to differentiate between the two, we need assessments. We need a CPT billing code for this particular Charles Bonnet syndrome. It does not have one right now, which is one of the reasons why it's being ignored. So we have to find that doctor that's going to pick up the baton and run with it and get a CPT code, diagnostic code, so it can be billed to the insurance companies upon diagnosis, and then there can be research and treatment, so on and so forth. So what happens with people with this diagnosis, and how do you know if they have it? Most people will live in isolation. We have people in our support group that have lived with this for years before they tell anybody that they have it. Their caregivers, their loved ones don't know it. Many of you will know it, or many of you, whoever family members and loved ones may know it, because they begin to hallucinate immediately when this happens. And your caregiver, your loved one, your family member is freaked out because they don't know how to help the person that is experiencing this. Like I said, it can be very frightening right from the get-go. It causes anxiety, confusion, fear, and most of the people end up in psychiatric wards, assisted living facilities, isolated in their own homes if people don't know what they're dealing with. This is a big problem. So based on the information out of the UK, which is where the only place where research is being done, We're experiencing numbers in the range of 1 to 3 people with low vision who have gone blind after being sighted experience this. According to the CDC, there are 6 million people in the United States that are legally blind. That's just based on surveys. That's not based on the impoverished, the undocumented, people who don't have insurance. This is all done from surveys that are actually being responded to, or doctors that submit their findings after they've been to the doctor. So this is a big problem. This is a huge problem in the United States, and we're the only nonprofit right now in the United States that is addressing this. This is a serious issue, and it's affecting a lot of people. So I'm on a mission to get information out there. One more, Austin. Let's see where we are. So are there risk factors? Indeed, there are. So what happens is people experience a horrible diminish in their quality of life. First of all, you've lost your vision. That's big enough. You know, adjusting to that and incorporating that into your life, most people don't even know a blind person. So, you know, when you've lost your vision after being sighted, this can be really difficult. Misdiagnosis is the #1 problem with this. We have a lot of suicidal ideology attached to it. To me, one person is too many that suffers or kills himself because they have this, because they can't cope. There are a lot of coping mechanisms, but they're not always easily incorporated into somebody's life. There's an increased fall risk because incorrect medications are being given to people. This is considered a mental illness or dementia or schizophrenia, so they're given incorrect medications. Not only are they getting wrong medication, it's affecting a part of the brain that doesn't need that medication, and so you've got another problem developing. It increases their risk of falling and just unnecessary medication. One more, Austin. So how do we find a solution? Well, I've got to find that doctor that's going to help me get a CPT code for this diagnosis. We hold weekly support groups. We have a website that offers resources. We connect people with services in their area as much as we can. We have people from all over the United States and Canada that attend our support group. Right now, research is only being done in Australia, the UK, and in Canada. We'll be next if I can find those people. So I'm here to find those people. So if somebody out there can hear me today that wants to get involved, push this forward. We, of course, do work on grants and the contributions of the public. So we're out there doing the best we can to get the word out. I've left brochures at all your stations. I hope you'll take a look at it, take a look at our website. And if you'd like to help, let me know. We are looking for volunteers to help get the word out because our support groups are growing at a very large rate. Don't forget, this affects anybody at any age, and our next stop is an Exceptional Children's Health Fair because I'm going to be presenting there because this does affect children too. Don't forget that. Anyone at any age. We also have a podcast that is available for you to listen to if you really want to delve into this. It's called the Charles Bonnet Syndrome Podcast. I am on a few of them. It is a very informative podcast. We have doctors on there. We have people living with it, caregivers, and caregivers are a big problem too because they don't know how to help their loved one or the person they're caring for. Does anybody have any questions? I know it's a lot of information to throw at you at one time.
And I'm sorry, I may have missed your name.
Eva Potts. Eva, E-V-A, like forever, Eva. And this is our board. We do have we actually have people that live with Charles Bonnet syndrome on our board. That's me, I'm Eva, my brother Kevin, Dr. Gary Cusick, he's a clinical psychologist. Antoinette Ellis, one more. Rosemary Anderson, who found out that my mother had Charles Bonnet syndrome by just Googling the heck out of her phone. Sherelle Quick, she's our secretary. Siobhan Midgley from Chicago, she is a vision impairment specialist, and Ken Ellis, who does production work that helps with our podcast and our content. So one day I'm sorry, go ahead. Sir? No, today's my first day, and then I'm going to the meeting this afternoon in Wesley Chapel. Andy was kind enough to invite me. He was our carpenter on some work we had done, beautiful work, by the way. And you know, that's how you get the word out, is just by talking to people. So what we're trying to do is help people live with dignity, grace, and inclusion, and just maintain their quality of life while they're dealing with this terrible condition.
So Eva, you had mentioned to me while I was doing work at your house about the importance of our first responders that
Thank you.
come in contact with
Yes.
these folks that
Yes.
don't understand the impact of what's going on and have maybe some not so
Thank you, yeah.
positive reactions to it, if you could.
Well, that happened with my mother. So first responder, everybody needs to know about this, but first responders, absolutely, and I do need to get in front of them. Here's the reason why. When people are approached and they're hallucinating, they're going to be considered, you know, I don't know what the terminology would be that they would use, but they would strap my mom down, and that made it worse. And she was blind as well. She didn't know what was going on. The ambulance ride from our home to the hospital was a nightmare for her. When she got there, I didn't even know who my mom was. They'll snap back. But imagine you're blind and you're hallucinating, and now you've got people on you, right? But these first responders don't know what they're dealing with. And if the family member can say they've got Charles-Bonnet syndrome and they know what it is, it's going to be a different situation. It's going to be handled differently. So I do have to get in front of all the first responders that I can. The other thing that, I lost my train of thought right there. It was really important. Oh, at the hospitals, everybody. Because when they get in there, they wanted to tie my mom down. They wanted to medicate her immediately, and that leads to bigger problems. So, you know, there's a lot going on that we need to do to normalize this. That's what needs to happen. When you go to the hospital, if you've had an eye injury, a soldier comes home from war, and his eyes are injured, the doctor needs to say, you may experience Charles-Bonnet syndrome. This may happen to you. We don't know what to do about it right now, but here are some resources. This is a website you can look at. You know, we don't know what to tell you, because what people are hearing right now is, you have this, good luck. You're going to hallucinate. We don't know how to help you. And that's what they're getting. All the people in my support group that actually get a proper diagnosis, that's the recommendation from their doctor. Bye-bye. That's it. Yes, sir.
I know that, you know, for people, there's a spectrum of blindness, you know, in terms of, and I see in some of your documentation, you know, it's like a percentage of becoming legally blind and so forth. How is where you are on that spectrum, you know, because there's people that are blind, no sight at all, but
Correct.
other folks with
Well, that's a
partial
very
loss
good
and stuff.
question, because we're not sure at what point the visual acuity causes, you know, when that visual acuity drops, at what point it's different for so many people. So people that are born blind don't experience this. They have no point of visual reference. So Austin said it the best, you know, your brain is starving for visual input and your visual cortex isn't giving it to it. So your brain's going to start searching for it. Normally goes into your memory bank and pulls things that, you know, that's why people will see loved ones that have passed away, pets that aren't there anymore, things that they forgot about. We'd be driving mom down the road, and all of a sudden she thought she was back in Jersey City. We were on MacArthur Road going to Fort Bragg. I mean, we were nowhere near anything, but all she saw was city. And so it really, and she had gone blind, so there was a progression. And as my mother's vision got progressively worse, so did the condition. And so this will happen. So if your vision improves for some reason, say you have cataract surgery, you're having this, and then you have surgery, it can go away, but it normally gets worse. The World Health Organization did us a disservice on some level by saying it only lasts 18 to 24 months. They put it on the Richter scale, they put it out there, but then they did a disservice to the people who suffer with it, because they said it'll be gone in 18 to 24 months. Well, everybody in my support group has had it for at least a year, some 17 years, and one guy in our group has had it since 1974. That's a long time. So it's definitely something to put on your radar. This could happen to somebody that you love. I mean, and they could get a misdiagnosis. It almost killed our mother to get a dementia diagnosis. It really did. I got it expunged by a neurologist here in Charlotte, but I had to take her from Fayetteville to Charlotte to have that happen. And it was incredible to see her life come back, but she still had the Charles-Bonnet to deal with.
Eva, I know we were
Yes, sir.
talking before the meeting. I was telling you about my grandmother who passed away, and it's possible she could have had this syndrome stacked with dementia or something else too.
Yes. Two things can be true at once. In the words of Judith Potts, in no relation to me, she runs the organization in the UK, oddly enough. And if it had not been for her, we would not know what we were dealing with our mother. We found Charles-Bonnet syndrome, but there was nothing in the US to help us. And it was, you know, it was hard because we didn't know what we were doing. Please forgive me, North Carolina allergy season. And we found Esme's umbrella, and she directed us to Dr. Gary Cusick in Louisville, Kentucky, who now sits on my board. And he was treating people over the phone for free. He still does it for free. He talks to you. He makes sure that it's Charles Bonet that you're dealing with. Had we not found him, I don't know that my mother would have ever been able to cope with it. So then we found the coping mechanisms that are on our website. We found Gary Cusick. We started a support group. And then unfortunately, we lost Mom before she could come to the first support group because it wore her out to the point that she couldn't function anymore. And she was 87. It's cruel enough to lose your vision in your 80s, but when you have to deal with hallucinations that are scary every day, she thought soldiers were chasing her. She thought my husband was trying to kill me. I mean, it was just, you hear screaming in your neighborhood, and you know, people, I thought, oh, what do the neighbors think? They think I'm hurting my mom. And I had to explain to them what was going on because she would scream, and the caregiver gets no rest when somebody is in that kind of condition. I mean, you don't get rest anyway. If any of you take care of people who have dementia or anything like that, it's very disturbing, so. And it wears you out. I know there's so much information. I could stand here and talk to you like for a week and still not probably cover everything.
And Mary Carmel's Light is a local
Yes.
thing that addresses that, and that's what you formed here in town?
Well,
where did they get the
we're
name?
a 501c3. We're national, but
It's her mother's name.
yeah, that was my mother's name, Mary Carmel.
Sure, I just
Oh, that's
wanna make the
okay.
connection.
But yeah, we decided, I know it sounds like a chocolate bar, but she would love that. But it was just, it was like shining a light on this because all I see are people living in darkness that are losing their vision on those support groups, and they keep motivating us to do this and keep doing this because even though Mom may be done, we're not. We have got to help people, and we got to help get them through this. And I invite anybody to come to our support group one day and just experience what these people are living with, because then you'll really understand it. Yeah. If there aren't any other questions, I'll let you get to your meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope this was informative.
Yeah, good to,
It absolutely was.
definitely
you.
something I was not aware of.
Yeah.
as Charles
Well,
Bonet said.
thank you for having me because,
Thank you for coming.
yeah, and once, like my mentor always says, once you know, you can't not know. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Eva.
Oh, where's the rounds?
So she'll be presenting this afternoon at WUMA.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh,
All right.
oh, okay.
We'll try to get as many
Got it?
people aware
Okay,
as
thank
possible.
you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right, moving on. I'm sorry.
Austin just had it up front and close and personal.
Oh. Reports and update. Managers report. Christina.
I don't have anything relevant.
Okay. So we have to do that, write 5 bullet points of what you did in the last week? I want that to be done with the kids in high school. And like, what did you learn? 5 things you learned last week in high school. That would be interesting, if anything.
Not your turn.
Clerk and communication. Austin, what do you got?
Good morning, council. You've got your communication list for March in your packets. Same stuff. We're wrapping up our advertisements on the tax reappraisal open house. We still have promotions going for the Easter egg hunt and Marvin Day. A couple holidays this month. Daylight savings time begins, hopefully for the last time. Your meeting schedule, nothing really out of the ordinary. Is there something that you want to see added to this list? This would be the time.
Looks good.
All right. Give me a week to prepare for losing an hour, I guess, so. When you get to my age, that's important. You got to worry about, losing an hour. I didn't know it was coming up that quick. All right, planners report. Hunter,
Now it's your turn.
come on up.
Hunter was so excited to present today, he went early.
Good morning. Just have a few things. The first item being, did you guys have a chance to look at the comprehensive plan stuff?
did.
Sweet.
I looked at 3.
Okay. what were, I guess, your overarching thoughts or questions?
That we should do not just the Heritage District, it should be the entire village. If we're gonna do this, we should take a look at everything that we have, everything that is in our unincorporated kind of limits, and plan for what our opportunities could be, and just kind of take an overarching view of everything kind of in the community. That was my takeaway.
Yeah, I'd agree to, oh, sorry, go
No,
ahead.
I'm agreeing, I concur. I think that planning is very critical for our future, and, you know, we need to be looking at everything, not just concentrate here in the Heritage District.
Well, and I think in looking at the unincorporated stuff, it makes, it will help if we can annex in, like, as we're working on those things, and what can be in those maybe soon-to-be annexed areas. So I think, yeah, I mean, I think overall, not just the Heritage District area, it should be all of the village.
Okay, and that was kind of then, the second item was the annexation. I did have a conversation with Centralina regarding annexation, just opportunities. And one of their recommendations were to potentially do a new or update comprehensive land use plan that includes kind of those foundational goals and recommendations for the donut holes. And you guys have also been saying the other great thing about land use plans is we can plan for those growth areas or plan for areas of annexation, go ahead and give them a future land use designation, all that stuff. And that stuff's important for as we continue to grow and potentially get annexations. We already kind of have that vision there. And so that's another thing that I thought was important. But I think I got my marching orders on that. I think I'll get with Christina, and the budget line item is just a plan. Now I think we'll just make sure that the direction's clear, and I'll start working on a scope so that we can launch an RFQ like July 1.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think it's important to have more of these things in one common place, so just so that it's easier for residents to see and comprehend, even easier for our boards, our council itself at times, and by having all those things in place, it helps you to kind of keep the things that may otherwise be siloed in mind for the greater good.
No, I agree. And like I said, the other thing that it does is at least it gets it as the main document and make sure that references to other plans are updated and correct. So I appreciate you guys taking the time and looking at that, and other than that, that is all I have, unless there's any questions specifically on anything.
No questions.
Bob?
Bob,
Bob,
you
you
good?
good?
He's shaking his head.
Thumbs up? Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Tyler, I got your event planning report. What you got?
Okay, April 12th, egg hunt. So 10 a.m., 0 to 3-year-old kids. 10:45, 4 to 6-year-olds, and then 11:30 is 7 and up. And then after a while, 1 p.m., we'll be having kind of a sensory-friendly, all-inclusive egg hunt at the park at 1 p.m. This is for anyone who would benefit from a calmer, less fast-paced egg hunt. So remember, that'll be at 1 p.m. We'll also, from 10 to 12, we'll have some of our friends from the Metro Fun Bus on the site, and we will have a petting zoo in the smaller lawn area. So that's the egg hunt, April 12th. With a good group of volunteers. We will have the Easter Bunny. I think Marv the Owl's going to be popping around some. So
what time should Marv?
So I'm hearing Marv might show up about 9:30.
Do you have any concern about parking?
No, luckily we have a great crew for that back there. So we'll park on site and we'll fill the park up. I look for it to be a little more in and out, with it being broken up into times for different age groups. Davey and his guys have that locked down. So that's the egg hunt. Any more questions on that? And then April 26th, Marvin Day. That'll be from 4 to 9 at Eford Park. live music, food trucks, huge kids fun zone, face painting, magic show. Local school band will be putting on a performance, a lot of local vendors, sponsors. If any sponsors are interested, go on our website or reach out to me. And then after Marvin Day, May 31st, 5K.
What time do you want us there at Marvin Day?
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Are there specific volunteer needs for Marvin Day that people need to sign up?
We'll let you know. There will be, I will be requesting that all accounts will get there because there will be enough duties to go around. I said duties. But yeah, I will let y'all know that probably at the beginning, or middle of, beginning of April. We'll have that list up made.
Can we see if we can get, like, announcements? I know this is a big deal or whatever, but, with the schools, but allowing them to just promote it, a real simple announcement that they do every morning. It's just an ask. I mean, it's not, you know, I know there may be rules now of what they can present on these, when they do the announcements, but if we could at least reach out to I mean, I know two of the principals, the one here at the elementary school and the other one. I just give them a call and say, look, I mean, it's a way to promote it for our.
I can try to reach out to the, at least middle school PTO. I know it's not the announcements, but I might be able to get something that they can send out to their list, if I can get a flyer, like a digital copy of the flyer.
Yeah, we can definitely ask the question.
Talk to Mr. Eversole at the middle school.
Yeah.
He and I have a relationship, so
Okay.
let's see what we can, see if there's anything that they can do.
Yeah, I just like as much
They ask.
info
Yeah.
out there. That's free advertising as far as.
For sure. Definitely ask the question. Absolutely.
Good.
All right.
Thank you. Coffee with council. I think I gave this one to John. I was swimming in the sea wondering, oh, who's gonna come and help me, and John showed up. I mean, he was scheduled to show up. I was a little nervous when we started seeing what was happening, but John, take it away.
So, first thing, I want to thank, there were two Boy Scout troops. I think it was 119, and I forget the other one, Joe.
219 and 119.
219 and 119. There were probably about, I'd say, 20 or so scouts there and some parents and things. They were working on one of their civic badges, and one of the requirements is attending, you know, a village-type meeting or some sort of governmental meeting for their civics badges. But want to thank them all for coming out, expressing an interest in learning more about how, you know, government works and the dialogue that, you know, you have in trying to understand residents' needs and working within, you know, the village's capabilities to you know, continue to grow and make Marvin prosper. The other large contingent, I'd say another 20 or 30 folks. Many of them were there specifically to talk about the process that we have and some of the information that's been provided in our neighborhood groups. Most of it specifically was from a number of residents from the preserve at Marvin in speaking about their concerns in regards to number one, some of the decisions that, you know, the village has made in the past regarding Heritage District and so forth, but also specifically around some of the information that has just started being shared with a developer interested in doing a rezoning over there. You know, there were probably, you know, 15 or 20 different various people that spoke about, you know, different concerns, some around security, some around just the size of the project versus the property in question, some concerns around stormwater flooding, things of that nature. Joe and I really did our best to, you know, listen to the concerns that they have. Some of the issues I think is something that we as council need to, and staff need to continue to educate folks on some of the information that, you know, is already decided, and really in the past, there was a lot of question about where and what the Heritage District is and what that means. So we did our best to kind of explain, the process by which, the Village of Marvin, going back to almost like 2004, almost 20 years ago, we've consistently had, I would say a majority of all of council and folks working to develop a town center over that time, having gone through all the appropriate procedures to create one. I remember we had a Marvin Heritage District working group that was made up of landowners and other residents around the area. So there's a lot that goes into these things in government. Unfortunately, sometimes individual neighborhoods or residents, not a lot of folks pay attention sometimes to, what's going on in local government until there's an issue right in front of them. So, we did our best to kind of explain to them what the process will be going forward with any submissions, and that we're very early in the process with the particular development that they were most concerned about. There were also some concerns expressed around trails and safety. I did provide my card to one resident because there was some concern about a homeless encampment with a Bowie knife that, I haven't heard anything as specific as that, so I did share my card to get some additional information. I did mention to that resident, and I think Joe did too, is that, there were some tarps, that were found back on one of the trail connectors and so forth, but that was just one of the other concerns, along with just long-term security, for any of these projects and things like that. So we did share different ways that we as the village would help to mitigate those. We did share that there is information online of what some of the specific projects even could be and how they are restricted to certain types of uses, and all of that's available on our website within the MDO and the table of uses that we have. But Joe, anything else you'd like to add? Kind of, we did stay an extra half hour, so we were there.
Hour.
Okay, yeah. So
I left at 8 o'clock. I was supposed to pick up my daughter at 7:30. So
yeah, so we did our best to try to address the conversations.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention, I kind of forgot to bring this up with my update, but it's regarding the Heritage District. If council recalls, back when we had our first rezoning, the Jones Homes project in 2022, I put together a memo that had every information, history, date stamped, anything regarding Village Center and the Heritage District. I pulled that up, got that out the other day, and was talking with Paul and me about potentially trying to update that and potentially seeing if there's a way to maybe even make it pretty. I don't know if it's actually make it a visual of a timeline. I mean, because that's what we are seeing in some of these, the neighborhood meetings and the public hearing processes, is that you'll have some people that will say, where did the Heritage District come from? I mean, why are we here? Why are we considering, I mean, so, some of these things, and some residents have been here. I've talked with some residents in the preserve specifically that were some of the first that moved in, that were from the area, that knew about the Heritage District and still do. And then some had no idea. And so that's, I think, kind of bridging that gap, but at least maybe trying to provide the background. They're still going to have their opinions, especially of the case-by-case rezonings, but hopefully that at least provides them the right factual information on how we got here and what the history and background to this day.
Yeah, and that is one important point, because I know there was specifically some questions that some of the residents had specific to the map, and whether or that specific property had originally been included in the Heritage District, or whether it had just been recently added. I think toward the end of the meeting, I know I was standing with a group of those individuals, and we were looking at the map, and while I can say, sometimes people can be confused by the color coding or the designation of the zoning, but I did properly point out that it's actually kind of the dotted and dashed lines that they have to pay attention to as to what's included in the Heritage District. And I actually, referred them to the website where we have our actual zoning map. And I looked at my copy of it just to make sure, we were correct in what we were saying. And if you look at our, Village of Marvin zoning map, it does have the entire, Village of Marvin, but then it also has an inset here that speaks specifically to the Heritage District eligible area. And Joe and I, as we promised those residents, we did go back to confirm what we were saying is true, and that, that specific property is one that had been included in the conversations about the Heritage District from its very origins. So
That
I
is
just
correct.
wanted to make sure the residents, anyone that might be watching, knows that we did go back to follow up and
So you show
confirm.
documents all the way back to what?
As early as 2004, when the Village of Marvin's first land use plan was adopted in October of 2004. There is a goal and recommendation in there that references the creation of a village center district centered or focused on the properties along Newtown Road in between Marvin School Road and Marvin Road. So it was in our first ever land use plan. There were changes, when I say changes, there were draft amendments to those land use plans, still basically building on that village center concept. But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of historic records. I found just digging through the whole preserve stuff, just in general, there was a settlement agreement between the original people that were buying that property way back in 2003, before any of us, before any of this, the zoning stuff. But that even then basically was dedicating this property for potential commercial during a settlement agreement that was done in 2008. So it's you can see there's documents and references throughout the last 20 years of the village. And that's kind of the hardest thing to explain, is that it's there. It didn't really come and get established where we have the zoning and regulatory language that created the actual district where property owners can go through the rezoning process that's occurring today until 2021. But the actual vision and concept and the properties identified, or the area kind of identified in that intent of that district, dates back to 2004.
So just to summarize, 20 out of the 30 years of our incorporation, this has been in the plan.
It does, and then, just a complete side note, Marvin in general, back in the Marvin area back in the 1900s, there's historical documents with the Crane family and all that, with this also being the town center for, exactly where we're sitting today between here and Banks Presbyterian, was the town center for commerce of the farmers and residents in the area back in the early 1900s.
I.e. the Crane store
Yep.
and such, yes.
So John, thank you. You were a lot nicer than probably I would be, but I cannot sit here and I know I'm not gonna get an apology from those guys, but whoever they were, if you're listening, it'd be nice if you come, and because we knew for sure that was not the case about the zoning. So again, it goes back to misinformation that people have. They complained about not being able to get any information. We cannot, make this clear to everyone listening, we cannot get your emails. You have to provide your emails. We're sending out all the information we could possibly send out, and it's available. There was a comment I made that, yeah, I'm in real estate. But when I bought here 18 years ago, I did not have a real estate license. And all that information when I bought was privy to anyone who was buying. And my biggest concern, quite frankly, was in South Carolina and the landfill, if that would ever be turned over to a household waste, because that creates methane gas. That becomes a problem. That may devalue it. You have to do your homework as an individual, and you do not need a real estate license. Kim can confirm that, to get all that information. It's just, the comment that was made is, I want nothing, and I hear it all the time, they want nothing. It's because they're in the door and they want to shut the door behind them. But they don't know what's coming, and it's my comment, when you want nothing, you'll get something, something you don't want still stands. And I made the comment too about the landowners. So think about this, and I really want them to think, there were 12 landowners that were getting together and having actual meetings, trying to work with the state government to de-annex, and that was right along this corridor. So what would say better to Marvin, as I commented about, that wasn't Marvin, the 3 storage facility, that's a storage facility, that's, in my view, that's where we draw the boundary, because that isn't Marvin, but we didn't have a say in it. So essentially, there was a chance that, and it happened before, that 13 landowners could have been de-annexed, and we could see mattress stores with flailing arms along this road and stuff. That's not what we want. They really have to get involved and understand what our limits are from the state, how we work with that, but I would so much more be a part of the decision-making rather than just to be a bystander and just complain and say, I don't like that, but really can't do anything about it. So I hope they're listening, that they see there. There was another comment, would I live there? Absolutely. I think for that neighborhood, walkability to what we're trying to do in this district is, I think, adds value to properties and adds value to community. So there's a lot coming in. Get involved, be a part of the planning board committee, all these things. We're not doing this behind the scenes, and it has been going on well before, obviously, I came on board. But thank you for what you said. I think at the end, we were being called communistic. I think we were communist at one point. That term came out, which is, unfortunate, but it's just not the case if you were really involved in the community.
Yeah, one other thing that I'd want to dispel is that I know there were some concerns brought up about the fact that we, who are elected officials, and I sell printers, Andy does carpentry, we all have our different lives and so forth. We're not necessarily specialists in all of these aspects of government. So that is why, especially as a smaller municipality, we often do contract with outside professional experts. But what I do want to make sure that the residents know is, just because the experts make recommendations to us, we don't just accept them blanketly. I've seen where the village has taken their advice, sometimes not taken their advice, sometimes taken it and changed it. But it's incumbent upon us, when we do make those engagements, to get professional opinions, to make sure that we're doing things the right way. But it's incumbent upon us then to make the best decisions specifically for the village of Marvin. And I think that's really what we do try to do. So, while people may have concerns about us reaching out and bringing in that expertise by bringing in consultants and things like that. Please know that we just don't accept what they say without vetting it, discussing it, and making sure that whatever recommendations we make are the right ones for the village itself, not, what some third-party interest might be advising us.
And the last comment I'll make is I didn't appreciate the tone of the meeting, because they were talking over, people were screaming stuff. It's just not productive. And quite frankly, if they want a group like that, a neighborhood that has issues, we'll set up a meeting where all the council can be here and you can talk to all of us. But I felt a little ambushed, but you know what? I think you did a great job. We did the best we could with the information we had, and I appreciate them all coming. I think we have the record of how many people showed up for Coffee with Council. That'll be a record for some time, so. But thank you to the Boy Scouts of 119 and 219. Moving on, we have our consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next up, unfinished business, review of 90% of construction plans submitted by Dewberry Engineering for the Village Hall Park project.
So I just wanted you guys to have have a printout so it's a little bit easier to see. I just got this back last night. I had reached out to Dewberry for a bit of a revision on the,
Bless you.
thank you, on the spillway off the back of the rain garden in front of Village Hall. But it isn't necessarily a direction we're looking for on it, but other than this front spillway, you'll notice on these plans, the trail loop has gone to a more natural surface. The two trees closest to the road, to Newtown Road up there, have incorporated into one large mulched-in kind of island, and you'll notice the root zones around those are very large for their protection. You'll notice a sidewalk loop kind of from the far side of the building closest to the park that will connect to the front, that will connect to a ADA ramp type sidewalk up into the event lawn for accessibility to the building to get to the front to reach the bathrooms during an event, during people spending time out at the park and stuff like that. I have reached back out to Dewberry this morning. These plans came in yesterday evening. These are very similar to the ones in your agenda packet. Really, nothing's changed on them. We had just requested a change in that front rain garden. But I have reached out this morning to see about reflowing that around the other side of the building.
So,
What part are you talking about?
it's the emergency overflow weir. And I brought this to Tyler's attention. We talked about this and sent it back.
I still don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so if you look at the pond and you look at that thing that juts out of the left side with the
Oh,
little,
so you want it to come over here?
so the problem with that is that we have the sidewalk for the handicap accessibility that goes to the event lawn, and it will not allow for drainage to flow through that because it has to be at almost a flat surface there. We can't build it through a swale because it won't match the grade. So it can't flow that direction, so we'll have to make an update on that. One of the things I want to point out to make sure the public is aware, we had made changes. We do have to lose one of those large trees over there. That is a change that's on this map that's been updated. And the reason for that is that tree is diseased. It has been identified by the county urban forester that tree is diseased and it needs to be removed. It will be not only a safety factor, but it's just not a good thing to have a diseased tree still there. So we had to remove that.
Is there a potential of it going to another tree? Is it like that kind of disease, or is it something, like how fast does that need to be mitigated?
It's, well, within the construction phase of this, that tree will be removed, which is going to be within the next few months. So that brings me to another point on this. It was mentioned at our last meeting about the drainage issues at Village Hall. This plan, which we've been working on for how long now, Tyler? 18 months?
Yep.
Somewhere in
That'll
that
do it.
vicinity, addresses the water issues at Village Hall. This has been a concern since even before the construction of this building, and there were concessions made by the engineers to divert water around the building, handle the water. As we got into this property, we realized that wasn't sufficient, so we set on to the next task of figuring out how we were going to accommodate that. And this plan accommodates the water that is being dumped on Village Hall by NCDOT's ditch system. This is not an old pond, it is not a wetland, the building is not leaning to one side. This is a good site, and this engineering will control the water flow through our property, the village property, into the creek where it belongs. So I just wanted to make that very clear that this plan, part of the Village Hall Park Phase 1, is handling the water.
Thank you, Andy. This looks good.
Does anybody have any questions about this? Because, I mean.
No, but I
this
don't, tell
kinda-
me again why it can't go on the side that it's on?
Okay, there are several aspects to this pond, okay? And this one particular thing that we're talking about is an emergency overflow weir.
Okay.
So if everything else fails, this is the final level that the water would come out of the pond and drain freely.
But there's gonna be like plants in this pond, right?
Yes, there's all kinds of stuff. So I could go into all the details, but what you're really asking is why this weir can't go this way.
Yeah.
So there will be no swale, okay? That ditch will be filled in, there's gonna be, the pipe's gonna go underneath
That
on
ditch
that
will be-
side of the.
That ditch will be filled in, got
Right,
it.
on the generator side of the building. So
So is the generator gonna stay as high as it is, or is it gonna come down?
it is, and actually, when you look at that, it's very deceiving because there is a huge moat dug between the building and the generator. There is very little grade elevation between the generator and the sidewalk. This is why we picked this particular point for the wheelchair access, because it's almost flat.
So it's gonna go on the street side in front of the generator?
Yes,
Sidewalk.
that's the handicap accessibility to, so we're gonna extend the sidewalk around, complete the loop around the building. That will give access to anybody that is handicapped from the event lawn to get to the front door of the building to access the restrooms facility, which is what was the original plan all along. So with that said, there's nowhere for a swale to run between the building and the event lawn to that catch basin on that side of the building. There is, however, a swale on the opposite side of the building
I got it.
to another catch basin that goes to the same point.
Got it,
So that's why we want to get that changed to that side, just to
thank you.
take care of that.
And have we talked about at all how we, or any more thought on how we cover the eyesore of a generator that it is?
So there's going to be landscaping that's going to surround it and all that, and that's, as we go into this. Right. Yeah, there will be greenery around it. So there is a landscape plan that goes to this. Now, what we've been concentrating on at this point is the initial phase of getting it graded, getting all the drainage in and all that stuff, because you can't plant plants until all that stuff's done. So the next phase after this is all approved and we get to working on that, the committee will get into the nuts and bolts of the landscaping, what kind of plants we're gonna plant and trees, all the things to make it pretty. But right now, we're concentrating on the working part of it.
So so we are giving thumbs up, thumbs down on this today. That's a question mark.
That's a question mark. Yes, you can. It was more just like to put it in front of you guys, because this is really the 70% plans, but they're more like 90, like that. We're under permitting right now, so these are way further along than they should be.
Okay. So what's it?
I didn't really put like a moat.
What's the next step?
So we're kind of going through all this stuff with DEQ through Dewberry right now, getting our permitting. We are under review right now, and it should be it was 70 days from when some stuff got approved. So I can like bring it back to y'all once I hear more from Dewberry and we kind of run more calculations on the spillway for like final approval that y'all are good with it, or
So once we get permitting, do we have the company that's gonna do the construction, or do we have to go out first?
it'll go out to bid to RFP.
Okay, so we don't have the actual construction company yet?
Right.
Got it. Okay, so that's really the next step.
So the construction phase of this is likely gonna be this summer.
Let's go.
So we're moving along at a good pace at this point to get this completed. We have to be completed by April
November 30th, 2026.
26. So we're on track to be done by next spring
Yeah.
with phase one.
Jill, question for you, refresh the community's memory about why financially and why, because we got a little pushback on doing anything over here with the amphitheater and what we were doing, but again, if you go back to 2004, Town Center, what we're trying to accomplish in here, we have what funds that were from not Marvin taxpayers? Grants.
So for Phase 1 of the Village Hall Park, we do have a Part F grant, which is for $500,000 that the village has to match. So total funds, $1 million, but $500,000 coming from Part F. And that's the Park and Rec Trust Fund for the state of North Carolina, or federal, actually. And then we also applied for and received a state grant from the OSBM for $250,000. So we're using that to cover half of our $500,000 match that we have going towards the project. So the net impact on us is now just $250,000 because of all of the $750,000 in grant money that we are receiving.
Okay, and so the 250 was not a matchable grant? That was just a, here's 250?
Correct. Yep.
Good.
So at the bottom line, the drainage itself, we would have to pay for anyway. So we're at a net outlay of zero if you consider the amount of money that we would have had to have paid to do the drainage work that is required.
Yeah, anytime you can address a major problem with another project that you're receiving grant money and funds for, you're going to end up netting out well. And you're going to, overall, it's a good strategy to save taxpayer dollars.
Thank you.
So just wanted to note real fast, the stormwater permit could take up to 70 days for approval. So that was submitted in February 15th, somewhere in that time frame. So there potentially may not have comments back on that by May. And what'll happen from there is they will change their plans based on what the comments were from DEQ in that submittal. You will not see these plans again because they'll just come up with whatever changes are needed based on the comments. So you may not see an RFQ ready until maybe June, depending on the scheduling of permitting.
You don't need any action from us?
Not right, no, not right this second.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. Next up, off-duty, update on off-duty officer program.
Good morning, everyone. As you recall, back in November, council approved funding for some off-duty officers to provide additional traffic and noise control in Marvin. Again, this is in addition to our current officers that we have that we contract for the daytimes. If you recall, also, we started looking into trying to determine what are the worst times for traffic, speeding through Marvin. We were trying to use our speed radar signs. We couldn't come up with determine exact time frames that we needed additional officers for. So council, through your discussions, come up with an idea that let's look at starting or moving into a program with Union County Sheriff's deputies to have off-duty schedules and let them, the data they collect, kind of guide us into if we want to extend that program and certain times of the days, nights, weekends, what have you there. Staff reached out to the Union County Sheriff's Department off-duty coordinator. We determined that to schedule off-duty work through them, there were it was a 3-hour minimum for shift. And so we took that information and developed schedules, and I put a schedule in your packet there. And what we tried to do was take 3-hour increments, Monday through Friday, and then on Saturdays and Sundays, and we varied the time frames, but we tried to hit every hour for the 24-hour period except, I think, from 3 a.m. to 4 or 5 a.m., somewhere around that time frame, because we determined there was really not a whole lot going on then. But outside of those couple of hours, we were trying to touch at least a portion of that 24-hour period over this entire couple of months program. So in saying that, we sent the schedule to the programmer, to this coordinator, and they advertised these schedules. Again, these are schedules that are advertised to the sheriff's deputies, and they volunteer for these time slots. We did not know going into it how many time slots and schedules would be filled, but what we found out through the through the last couple of months or so is You can, it's about half, 50% of the time slots now for I was counting one time slot, like one schedule might be Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. They may take a portion of that week, or they may take the entire week. So, you know, money-wise, we ended up spending out about a third of the money that was set aside for this program. So we got some value out of the volunteers for these schedules, because they did hit several hours throughout the day. And many of the ones that we were really concerned about, which was the school hours in the morning, school hours in the afternoon, and then the 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. or 9 p.m. to midnight time frame that we were looking for. So I had provided you in the packet as well. I took some of the notes that we had requested the officers to provide from their schedules. I will say the majority of the officers did provide notes for while they were on shift, but we did have some that did not submit notes, so I could not pull any data from what they had done while they were out there, outside of them being visible and working during that 3-hour schedule. But in saying that, this information went up through, I think, February 2nd timeframe, or somewhere around there. There were over 64 traffic stops noted, and of those, there were 10 or more that were citations were actually given to the drivers, and many of them were for speeding, some were for other issues, but with that, there were also 20 warnings provided as well. So of the traffic stops, you had at least 30 or more drivers that were spoken to by the officers. So that was in hopes of slowing the traffic down through Marvin.
Davey, one question. So the document that we have in our agenda, where we're seeing these notes and what those stops were, these are just from this program, not including our regular Marvin enforcement, correct?
That is correct.
Because, you know, I certainly see some definite additional value, because some of these are pretty egregious, you know?
Well, I mean, it's like, you know, outstanding warrant I saw was, somebody was arrested.
Well,
for
and
an
you pick
outstanding
up other
warrant.
things along the way,
Yes.
yeah.
So I think, and you said we've only spent about a third of what we had budgeted?
That's correct.
So, I mean, if is the question, should we continue this?
Well, yes, I would like for get your feedback. We have the funds there to continue offering up these schedules that, you know, I would anticipate through the end of June. Staff's also budgeting for funding in the fiscal year 25-26 budget. But it's something we just wanted to kind of let you know what has happened over the last couple of months with the scheduling. We ran this through February, so they're still working some of these schedules through February. But
The lady that controls the money.
Okay.
Council, can I ask a question to the council and to Davey?
Sure.
And to Jill? If we were to add a third officer, where this is an excellent scalpel approach, do we save money by doing this versus bringing on a third officer? I forget, I have a number of $86,000 in my head, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's about,
160,
yeah,
I
it's about
think,
double that, Bob.
It's double that.
Yeah, it's exponentially more expensive to have a third officer than it is to just hire some off-duty at random times to supplement what we currently have. It would be a much bigger expense.
This seems to be more effective because we're actually earmarking times where we're getting these kind of results. So,
One other thing to note, Bob, is that when we do have a full-time deputy, that the sheriff's department does not allow us to dictate what that deputy works on. In this situation, we are specifically hiring off-duty for a specific task. So they are doing traffic and noise control specifically. So we can dictate that, being that this is a voluntary type of situation. So the effectiveness, in my opinion, would go down in this regard if we just had a third officer out there doing it. Not to mention the fact that it is going to be much cheaper because we're not, locked into a $160,000 a year contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually something we should share at WUMA.
Well, and
For
well,
other municipalities.
this
that
is
just-
where I got the idea, actually, was from Weddington, because they had talked about this, and then they ended up adding two more deputies full-time, so they have 5. So they have actually 24/7 round-the-clock coverage. But they had also, this was all about that, if you remember, Joe, that initiative to add state troopers, was it? They were talking about at WUMA about that, and then there was some discussion about doing some part-time off-duty officers to handle traffic, because, Weddington has that thoroughfare issue. So this is all where this kind of came from originally. So people are thinking about alternative ways to kind of handle, the traffic and the speeding and all that, so.
So I'm only up here just to add a little bit of clarification. While Davey has put into the budget requests for some off-duty officers, as Christina and I work to present you a balanced budget, that may be something that you see is initially cut from the budget, and then council will have opportunity to discuss and potentially add it back. So it might be requested, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we will have it in a balanced budget for you. Just want to clarify. Okay.
Well, can I ask a question, though?
Yeah, I think that was the nicest of ways. No soup for you.
Can I ask a question, then? Considering that we used a third of the budget set forth, okay? And considering the success that we've gotten from the limited amount of hours that we were able to work this, would it be, I guess what I'm asking is, what is the carrot to dangle to get more participation in this program? Can we, yeah, and that's kind of where I'm going with this. So should we think about maybe offering a little bit more money, given the fact that, let's find a sweet spot, I guess,
What are we
'cause
paying now?
if we're we've only used a third of our
What are we
budget.
What are we offering per hour?
It's $40 an hour, so
$40
it's
an hour.
120 for a 3-hour shift.
Okay, so we've got 3-hour shifts, not 2-hour shifts,
Right.
3-hour shifts.
Yeah, and it may be just the way that it's kind of presented to them to choose hours. Officers that are working a full-time job already may not be wanting to commit to the week, And so I don't know that it's necessarily the money per se, but it may really just be, what the availability. So if we increase the money, we may or may not even get more availability.
It's just a trial thing, right? I'm just trying to figure out ways to get more coverage out
I
of
think
it.
it's been successful so far.
Right.
So, I would say let's do it another 3 months, and as we're going through the budget season, let's continue to evaluate and.
Do you know you probably didn't calculate this, but do you know the vacancy rate that we have in terms of how, is it being filled 50% of the time?
Well, I had, when I figured out the scheduling, it's about 50% of the time, but, a schedule would be a Monday through Friday. All of them had a Monday through Friday and then a Saturday and Sunday, so it was 2 schedules per week. And so half of the schedules got filled, but maybe not all of the week did. They may have worked 1 night or 3 nights of the 4-week night. So maybe we can kind of take the information that was provided, hone in on the times that we were successful, and we offer those times more. Maybe we offer, I can speak with the coordinator and see if it would be more, if the officers feel it's more beneficial for an additional hour, maybe 4-hour shifts rather than a 3-hour shift. We can try to figure out a better way to get more coverage.
The other thing, too, that kind of throws, I guess, a monkey wrench into this is the fact that for what we're asking, not all of the deputies are radar certified. So if we're asking for radar patrols, speeding, and that kind of thing, that does narrow the field a little bit about who's qualified to do these shifts. So there is that. Of course, they have extra training for that. So, these are the kind of things that play into this, so maybe a combination of maybe a little bit more money, maybe a little bit better working on the scheduling, kind of tweak some things to see how we can possibly get a little bit more out of this. I mean, I feel like it's successful. I'm looking at numbers that are showing that these guys are out there, they're getting rid of criminals off the road that would have not been normally caught. They're slowing traffic down. You know, they're out there, they're a presence, they're around. It gives us more security. So there's just a lot of positives to this program. So I think that maybe just kind of honing it a little bit would be in our best interest.
And just the visibility alone.
Yeah.
Never mind speeding, but for anybody else that, you know, may be coming through town with ill intent, you know, just the visibility. And, you know, I commended Officer Swan and Officer West, you know, Sheriff West, because I've seen in my neighborhood, and I live on a cul-de-sac road in the woods, almost on the South Carolina line. But I have noticed significant more visibility of our deputies patrolling our subdivisions and stuff like that. And that's the way that we're really bringing value back to the Marvin taxpayers, because it's something above and beyond what I know we used to get before we started engaging, you know, sheriff's deputies directly, or, you know, through the village. And, you know, I remember back then, before we did sheriff's deputies, response times were measured 20 minutes and above. And I don't know what they exactly are now, but I remember after we hired them, at least at that time, it was down to like 10 minutes, you know, so cutting it in half. So it really brings great value, and I think, you know, at least for now, we've discovered an efficient way to increase visibility, increase enforcement, and hopefully slow people down on some of our streets.
Well, one of the benefits of when you do get pulled over by an officer and he either talks to you or issues you a ticket, you remember that area every time you drive in it again and realize that, okay, this is you know, and if we have to get it to that point where, okay, Marvin's an area that you just don't want to be speeding in. I'd love to get it to that, because everybody knows those towns, you know, so.
I think it's good. Great information, really good feedback. I say we keep doing it, and we'll reassess it, what's February, March, April, like beginning of May, another couple of months.
Yeah,
I think it's really good, though.
definitely behind it.
Thank you for that, getting all that information.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you.
Good info. Thank you. All right, moving on to new business. We have discussed and consider entering contract with Dewberry Engineering for archaeological study, service of the property. Why do I struggle with this? It doesn't take my finger is what it is. Of the proposed Tullamore Phase 4 trail route at a cost not to exceed $20,000 with the 10% contingency, and allow manager to execute the contract. Sorry.
That's okay. So, yeah, this is the archaeological study relating out to Tullamore Phase 4. Before, there was a contract with Dewberry that basically the scope of that was getting a letter written to essentially notify the SHPO to start an evaluation to see what was out there archaeologically. They did note that there is some type of cemetery in the vicinity, is all they can tell. That's all the public knowledge they give. They don't give exact locations or anything. They just state that it is in the vicinity of where this project would go. So this new contract is basically just an all-inclusive archaeological reconnaissance survey with soil studies and a lot of locating of cemeteries. Locating.
So let me ask a question, and this is just kind of, it may be a little bit off in left field, but I know. So, I mean, obviously, this is something that has come to our attention because of building this trail. But if, in fact, there is a cemetery out there and it is and it gets identified, is this something that can be tied in with the Historical Society or something like that, that this could be, you know, the cemetery is like, okay, now it's here, and now we've found it again. Can we, like, you know, make this something on a positive note beyond just the trail, but like,
I mean, I have to feel like there are groups out there that would be very happy to come out and help us find, identify, cordon off, and mark this area. I don't know that.
from a historical standpoint.
From a historical standpoint, you
Yeah.
know, everybody says, oh, well, they're not gonna tell us exactly where stuff is because they don't want people out there trying to dig it up. But I mean, we have cemeteries right here that nobody's out trying to dig anybody up. So I do not want to spend $20,000 to try to go out there and do this. I think there are groups out there that we can tap into. There's got to be some sort of money, but I do not think that we need to be going out and spending this amount of money to find this. I feel like once it's identified, then we can move.
With my gold star.
You can keep your gold star. I feel like we can, once it's identified and we know where everything is, we can reroute the trail, but I don't think that we need to be spending that money. I think we need to go out and find some groups who are willing to help us and spend their money to identify this. I mean, historical societies, I mean, I've heard it's from the Civil War, I've heard it's from the Revolutionary War, so I'm not really sure what time frame we're looking at, but I gotta feel like there's gotta be some government money out there to identify this and mark it so that we can honor those people.
Yeah, I mean, if it isn't truly a war cemetery from a battle, whatever, then attention needs to be brought to it, and we need to you know, make some kind of an impact on its existence, that you know, and honor that sacrifice that was given all those years ago. So there's got to be, to Kim's point, there's got to be somebody out there, that's their mission, and we just need to find them and put them on this site and see what we can do with it.
What do we actually know at this point about it? Is it more just a rumor, or is there
No,
actually
there's-
something
they
confirmed
know-
that we're working from?
Confirmed. Confirmed, but they're not telling us exactly where, because again, they don't want to make that public, because they've got a fear that people are going to go out and try to dig up whatever's out there. So there has been graves identified.
So there's some preliminary information on our website in the historical, tab. So there may be some actual linkage to Revolutionary, Civil. I don't really know because I have not read it, to be honest with you. What I can say is, to answer your question, Councilman Wortman, you could get it recorded on the National Register of Historic Places once we find out what it is, and it is tied back to some type of historical feature of some sort. We can do some research and see if we can find some organizations or agencies that are willing to, you know, pick this up, depending on what's listed on that historical tab, if it's Revolutionary, Civil, and then we'll kind of backtrack from there and try to find some resources.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I think that sounds good. I don't think we need to be spending that
But
money on
in the
that.
meantime, I just want to make sure everyone knows that this project will stop until that's done, because we can't build anything.
Fine.
Okay.
So, Austin, procedural question, do we still make a motion in the affirmative, but then if we don't want to do this?
You are not required to make a motion at all.
Just one question. Are there any other, like we were talking about, grant monies that have to be spent by certain times and dates? Are there any grant monies associated with this project that if it does get delayed?
I think we're out of money. Yeah.
There's no,
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Open topics. Start with you. Bob, you have anything?
No, I'm good, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No, thank you.
Believe it or not, I don't.
I had one thing, sir, if you don't mind. Sorry, I forgot to mention it. I did want to let you all know that we did get a note from our insurance provider earlier this week that the league is now dismantling their health benefits. So we will no longer have health insurance coverage with the league. Sorry, staff, you're just now hearing this. We will. We are working to get another provider lined up before our current one expires. So we hope to have
When does that expire?
June 30th. So
Okay.
we'll have someone in place by then, and I don't know who it's going to be, Blue Cross Blue Shield, it could be Aetna, but our insurance will likely change. We should not have any lapse in coverage. Just wanted to let you guys know that it is a variable that we will be working on for budget purposes and continuity of our staff having health insurance, so.
That'd probably be smart. Thank you. All right, review of action items, next up.
Okay, we're going to move forward with the extension of the contracts for asphalt and concrete. Hunter's got his direction on the comprehensive plan. We're going to continue the off-duty officer program at least through May and bring you all back some updated results. We're not moving forward with the Dewberry contract, but rather Tyler will do research to locate some agencies that could assist in work for this area archaeologically. And that's about all I got.
Okay. Next, any questions? Hearing none, next is a review of the Mayor Pro Tem list.
I'm opening it right now.
Oh, why you stumble over that every time?
All right. Ready.
You'll find out when you get to be as old as him.
He can't hear you, talking to his good ear.
So, anything on this list? Oh,
Nope,
Kim's gonna
I'm
do-
looking at it.
Okay.
No.
Got it pulled up.
I just want to make a comment that was on the list before. I think you were asking where we were at with Weddington. Waxhaw. The mayor had contacted me, and what he wants to do is get a group of his people, send me an email, and I would like to ask whoever wants to be on the committee for the Bonds Grove Roundabout to get together. I think, John, you expressed interest when we met with him. I would be on that. So anyone else, let me know if you want to be included in the meeting that they want to have, whether it's at Waxhaw or at here, to discuss how we move that project along, Bonds Grove Roundabout. So he did contact me, and I still have not received his email with his list of people, but what I would respond to and copy all of the people who come to me and say, yeah, I'd like to be a part of that, so.
I don't have anything, Austin, I'm good.
All right. Give me a second here. All right, council comments. We'll go with you, Bob, since you're in Zoom world.
Yep, no, I'm good, sir. Thank you. No comments.
All right, John?
I'm good, thank you.
Andy?
I'm good.
Kim?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, well, I'd like, again, thank staff, thanks Sheriff Department, Davey, for your work on what you did with the officers. But I do want to do one little shout out, and it goes to Silvio, your worker at the, our staff member who works at the thing. I happen to be talking to him over there, and I just want to point out to the kind of people that we hire and stuff. I mean, we got to talking about repurposing, and there Sylvia's like, oh, you'll appreciate this, and he brings me over in the shed, and he shows me this little trailer that he found, apparently, and it was all rusted out. He found it in the woods in Eford Park. He took the time, put paint, got it all nice, put a nice box on it, and it's just the right size for the trails and removing debris and stuff versus having to come to you and say, hey, I need a budget item for this trailer. So he made use out of what was, and it was probably in the name of just a few dollars, but hey, it's one more line item. But that, I applaud him for that ingenuity and that kind of mental. I know, Andy, you repurpose a lot of things. I get blamed for it all the time, but it was nice to see. I'd just like to shout out and say thank you to him specifically. And with that, we need to go into closed session, so I'll need a motion for that.
So moved.
I'll make a motion to move into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143318.11A5 to instruct staff on negotiating the price and other material terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease.
Further discussion. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right.
Sorry, Andy, I had to read it.
We are now in closed session,
My fault. I knew better than that.
and we're going over there.
Jumped the gun on that one,
I know, so moved.
Give me that damn